Hello and welcome. I'm here with Dakota again, and today we're talking Friday the 13th movies. Now, the Halloween series got sort of a reboot in 2018, where we saw a continuation of the storyline from the original Halloween. I think it's extremely likely that we'll see other slasher franchises make a comeback, maybe even in a similar manner. We're both big fans of the Friday the 13th movies, and I thought it would be fun to kind of pitch what we think could be next for the franchise. I don't know, before we get going, any thoughts?
Yeah, the Friday the 13th, it did have its own kind of reboot with the 2008, I believe, film, which served,
09, I think, actually.
it served as a sort of, it did the kind of Evil Dead 2 approach where it told the first movie's story very quickly in the first, 5 minutes, and then it essentially did its own version of the second film, and it's not exactly beloved by many. I personally am one of the few people who actually quite enjoyed it a lot, even though I recognize it has its various flaws. But with the success of the return to form with Michael Myers and the is it 2018?
Yeah,
2018 Halloween, it's very likely that we'll see a form of Jason come back. Freddy also had his in the Blumhouse, Platinum Dunes, Platinum Dunes, Nightmare on Elm Street, but that and that one and the Friday the 13th never really followed up with anything. I can't recall if maybe the box office wasn't great or what, but I'm hopeful anyway that we'll eventually get some sort of return from those two characters, especially Jason. He's always been my favorite character.
Yeah, mine as well. I mean, I think there was the 2000s remake era where there was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the beginning. We had the 09 Friday the 13th. We had the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, and then we had the two Rob Zombie Halloweens.
Yes.
And now I think Halloween is kind of leading the charge in this era of remakes. I personally am a bigger fan of the concept of doing another soft reboot like Halloween was, or soft sequel boot, where they ignore some sequels but continue the storyline of others kind of situation. I liked seeing Laurie Strode back. I think part of the reason we chose to do Friday the 13th is because the other series, I don't know, it seems a bit easier how you would continue them. Like, I think you'd have to bring Heather Langenkamp back if you were to do another Nightmare movie.
Yes.
If you wanted to continue a storyline of sorts like Halloween. Child's Play never really ended. They did have their remake, but Cult of Chucky saw the main kid come back.
Yeah, and that's still going. Don Mancini's on his way making the next movie too. Don't know when it's coming out, but it's happening. So.
Yep. And then the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series is in this state of shit limbo where they really have no idea what to do. So just leave that alone. So yeah, I think we're gonna break this up into two parts. Dakota and I agreed on doing a realistic approach, how we think that the studios will actually bring back the Friday the 13th films. And we'll do that one first, and then after we're through with that, we're going to jump into a kind of more of a fanboy, something that we would personally like to see that isn't necessarily realistic. You could be as realistic with it as you want, but pick a storyline and kind of like run with it yourself. Yeah. So why don't you go ahead, Dakota, and tell me what do you think is a possible avenue that the Friday the 13th series could take to come back?
Well, the one that I think is possible, and personally what I'd like to see from the series, is to do like a complete return to the original film, and I'd like a remake of the original Friday the 13th, because we haven't actually had a true one with Pamela Voorhees as the main killer. Betsy Palmer was, despite hating the original movie, she was very good in it. She played a nuanced character, switching between like this sweet and sincere kind of caregiver to mother who's grieving and completely lost her fucking mind to the death of her child. And we have honestly probably even much more broad spectrum of talented actresses these days, and I think there's plenty that could take that role up and really run with it. My plan, I guess, is to have Jason's mom truly Friday the 13th back, middle movie of Jason just doing his good old thing, and then the end game, I guess you could say, is I am wanting a actual Jason Takes Manhattan film. I don't want...
Wait, is this your realistic pick still?
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yes,
You're
it is.
Maniac.
I'm a fucking maniac, but Jason Takes Manhattan was a goddamn lie, and I'll stand by that fact forever. The trailers completely shit on my dreams, and while the parts where Jason actually is in the fucking Manhattan it's great, but there's a lot of unnecessary garbage, like the flooding of the sewers every
it's
12
a
hours
weird
with the
ending.
toxic waste, and it turns him into a kid. And you might be thinking it's a little bit of it out there for a realistic pick, but I think a slasher killer taking a big city like Manhattan is definitely an interesting idea that hasn't been done to a huge degree. Most slasher films are in like very rural. My one particular huge complaint with Jason Takes Manhattan, aside from the lying in the first half, just being on a pretty boring boat ride, was there's this one scene I remember where he's on the subway train and he's stalking past the killers. There's this great chance where it could be like Darth Vader from fucking Rogue One, just slashing through with the soldiers. He could have done that in the fucking subway. Would have been great. Him hacking through people, chucking people through out the window, but he just doesn't do that. He just kind of stays the course and follows them until they get off the train. And yeah, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see like a true actual Jason Takes Manhattan is my end game for my more, I guess, grounded idea for my plan.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I don't think any studio would be brave enough to attempt to make a Friday the 13th movie without Jason as the killer. But I like where your head's at. I think that's a good idea. I can't wait to hear what your unrealistic take is. So I guess I'll go for mine now. Um, I was thinking that if they were to do a bit of a reboot, I don't think a realistic what the next movie could be. I don't. I kind of in the same wheelhouse as you. I don't think that there is a storyline that they would want to do in the vein of Halloween. I don't think, even though I love characters like Tommy Jarvis, I'd love to see the Tommy Jarvis storyline continued. Maybe a bit more on that in my unrealistic idea, or my more fanboy idea. But I think with Friday the 13th, you'd have to do just a remake. You'd have to just start from scratch, do the beginning again. A very possible route they're going to take is do something similar to the '09 film, where Pamela Voorhees starts off as the killer. They kind of recap the first couple movies, and then Jason shows up. Yeah. That being said, I would hope, and I think, because I think this is what people would prefer, rather than have the movie taking place in like a house, which was common in the early Friday movies. Part 4 takes place across two houses. Higgins' cabin in part 3. I think that they'd probably go for the more campground idea, like try to follow what the first movie did, or even the sixth film, and go for the campground thing. So I would guess that it would be in the cabins of Crystal Lake. I would even go as far as to say that the movie would follow Jason a lot more, like we saw in Halloween. Because in Halloween, we spend a lot of time with Michael Myers. Yeah, and you often wonder, like, okay, what tree is he going to pop out of? Yeah, but I think that because I think studios are starting to become more aware that we're here for the killer. Yeah. We saw in Halloween more Michael. Yeah. The last Child's Play movie, we got a lot of Chucky. Yeah. I think that in this Friday the 13th movie, it'd be really cool and maybe even realistic to see a movie that we follow Jason for a lot of his life. Like maybe Jason's already grown up at this point. I don't know if it's tough to say what they would do. I just think that the studio is going to be lazy and they're going to do basically a pseudo remake of the '09 film. I don't think it's going to. I think it's going to safe to say that the 2018 Halloween is probably going to be a better movie than the new Friday. Because I want to be wrong more than anything in the world. I want this movie to kick ass, whatever it ends up being or whenever it ends up happening. But I just have a very strong feeling in my gut that they're going to fuck it up. Yeah. That being said, let's move into our kind of more outlandish theories. Okay. Our theories that are a little bit more off the deep end. Right. So yeah, our more creative approach. I realize mine wasn't nearly as fun as yours was in the realistic approach. I just have zero faith in the studio to do anything really creative.
I guess mine was kind of assuming there'd be a bit more faith behind the people making it.
Which is totally fine. I can't wait for you to hear.
I do see your point.
What do you think though? What is your fun idea? If you were helming this next Friday the 13th series, even if you have sequels, let me hear them. Okay. What do you have in mind?
Okay. Well, essentially, I'm kind of omitting 5, 7, and Goes to Hell in my sort of theories. And not
Gonna catch some heat from me there. I
and
love Jason Goes to Hell.
Jason Goes to Hell, I'll actually say I don't hate that much. I'm like many, I'm not exactly a huge fan of the body swapping plot line, and they cut a side plot with Creighton Duke about Jason killing his sister in it, which kind of makes his lines saying specifically "remember me" kind of weird when that's not actually in the movie. Because why would he have any connection to Jason then if they cut that side plot? But it's very stylish, I'll say. Got a lot of style, got a lot of great kills and effects, and obviously sets up for Freddy versus Jason. But my more out there approach is simply Jason X2. That's my
Oh my
idea.
god, no.
That's my idea.
You know,
That's what
actually, I can't complain.
That's my idea. They put Jason in space. They give him nanomachines. They give him a big, crazy surgical knife, and they crash him on a planet. And he's like, I'm pretty sure it's an alien planet, and there are sequel comics. I know that much.
Would you follow the comics, or are you doing your own thing?
I haven't read them, so I can't really say if I would follow them exactly, but I just want a Jason X2 because there's a whole lot of opportunity with Nanomachine buffed up, psycho mania, Uber Jason, that's his name, on a brand new planet. There's tons of opportunity there for slaying and all his good shit, and that's essentially what I want out of my most like out there wild pick. I would say a remake of Freddy vs. Jason, but even that I think is simply impossible. I don't know, the slasher killer versus idea I think is something that just doesn't happen really anymore.
This is your fantasy though, dude. Yeah. You do whatever you want.
In my fantasy, I would like to see Freddy vs. Jason remake as well, because that movie was plagued by such production hell that the final product came out this kind of mess, which I'll defend it. I like the movie. When it actually gets to the Freddy vs. Jason near the end, it's fucking awesome. Despite how goofy some of it is with the pinball sound effects and shit in the dream.
Yeah, it was
and
weird.
The whole Jason's afraid of water weakness thing.
Oh, that was stupid. I did not like that. I love that movie. Like, genuinely, that's one of my favorite in both the Nightmare and Friday series. But I hate the Jason afraid of water thing.
Yeah, I understand Freddy's, I guess, weakness to fire, even though it's not really ever been brought up. But Jason scared of water, like, maybe that's kind of alluding to the toxic waste end of Jason Takes Manhattan, maybe? But I don't understand why he'd be weak to water when he's been shown numerous times to be fully capable of swimming and being fine, but fucking whatever. But yeah, I'd like to see a remake of that with less absolutely horrendous CGI characters. That'd be nice. Specifically with like Freddy's worm and when he's smoking the pot in that film, which is funny, but the effects are not great on him. Just like, you know, make it so it's not in production hell, so it's more focused and just give us more of what we want. And that's essentially what the other movie gave us. It was what we want with a lot of stuff we didn't want in between. So I'd like to see a remake of that and continuation of the Jason X tale.
So this is my question though, before we move on to mine. You want to do Jason X2.
Yeah.
Now, is this Jason X2 or is this a remake of Jason X?
This is Jason X2. This is a continuation off of Jason X. I don't think that... I mean, you could remake Jason X and fix some things, but I think it, more than anything, deserves a sequel.
Okay, so Jason X2. Is the next movie in your series going back in the timeline, like earlier for this Freddy vs. Jason reboot remake? Or is this Freddy fighting Uber Jason in the future?
Ooh.
You keep going... Uber Jason, like down, you just keep doing Jason X sequels. Like the series becomes a sci-fi slasher franchise.
That's my idea.
That's your idea. Yeah. Okay. Well, I know you don't like part 5. I guess. Are you done? Do you have anything?
I'm good.
You're
I'm
good?
done.
Okay.
You can hit yours now.
I know you don't like part 5. I know you don't like Jason Takes Manhattan. So I have a very strong feeling you're gonna absolutely hate my timeline. All right, so. I just alluded to that I love Jason Goes to Hell. I really do. I really enjoy that movie. That's one I have a lot of fun going back to. I actually don't think I really dislike any of the Friday movies except the remake. Even though I don't like Jason X and I'm not a big Takes Manhattan fan, I'll still watch them, and I watch them repeatedly.
I'll watch Manhattan and Goes to Hell and the remake anytime. I just don't. The only two I'm super not really a fan of is 5 and 7. The other ones I generally like enough to rewatch, but 5, I don't know. They were kind of doing like a Halloween 3 thing with this anthology idea, but I don't think it worked all that great. And then 7,
you just don't like the telekinetic.
I don't like the whole.
I don't mind that, but
thought the ending was fucking dumb.
Yeah, I think the only one I really don't like is the remake. And that's the only one I don't rewatch. I rewatch and like all of them. So, even though I love Jason Goes to Hell, and I'm not crazy about Jason X, but I do enjoy it, I've always looked at them as being separate from the first 8 movies. I always think that there's kind of like... Jason Goes to Hell is kind of a soft reboot, and then Jason X is its own thing. Even though I'm sure there's things in the lore that you could look into that connects them to the first 8 Paramount movies, to me, the Jason leaving Paramount and going to New Line, the Paramount series ended there.
Yes.
Jason Takes Manhattan. He died definitively in the sewers of Manhattan, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, turned into a baby.
Not in my timeline. So at the start of my movie, it's very similar. I'm going to use the same music that opens Jason Goes to Hell.
It's like this. We live in claustrophobia.
Whatever it goes. And it's New York again.
Okay.
And it's shots in New York, but then we slowly descend from the skyline. Like the movie opens up and it's the skyline in New York, and then streets of New York, and then the subway, and then the sewers. And while in the sewers, a homeless guy. Oh, my movie takes place in the past. It takes place in basically maybe a couple weeks, a year. It doesn't really matter as long as it takes place in the 80s still.
Yeah.
So it still takes place.
Pay attention to the Friday timeline. It actually
It's in the 90s at that point.
Yeah,
it's nuts. But basically this follows Jason Takes Manhattan like very quickly after.
Okay.
And it's a homeless guy going through the sewers, and he's poking around with a stick or something, and he finds the sludgy mass of Jason.
Okay.
Recently deceased. And he gets revived somehow. Like the guy finds the mask, and Jason's still a form. Like he's not sludge. He's still a body. He's dead, but he's like, oh fuck, let me take this guy. It's an exploitation sort of film. So maybe the homeless guy's like new fuck doll or something. I don't know. So he takes Jason, and he's like, what is this guy? Kind of like Halloween. Halloween, I think 4 or 5, where the hermit finds Michael and nurses Michael back to health.
I'm fairly certain it's 5.
Yeah, that's 5, I think. So it's a similar situation where he's like, oh, this poor man has been drowned in the New York subway sewers. I have no idea how he's alive. And he tries to nurse Jason back to health, only to have his own life taken by Jason.
Okay.
Jason then leaves New York. This is all opening credits, by the way. This isn't something heavily focused on. As Jason's being grabbed by the homeless guy, and he's like, oh, buddy, how'd you survive the flooding of the sewers? The titles are still coming up and fading back out into a new scene. So it's kind of a montage title sequence. Then after Jason kills the homeless guy, he leaves New York and goes back to Crystal Lake. And we never actually get that full shot of him yet. We're saving the money shot of just all Jason for later. So Jason's left New York. He's back in Crystal Lake. He swam through the Atlantic into Crystal Lake. And when he gets there, he finds that Crystal Lake's been reopened again, and the killings start. And then the first time we see Jason stab somebody, he goes in there and he finds some camp counselors screwing. He goes to kill him, and when he kills him, we get that shot of Jason. Blood splatters on the mask. Title, and it explodes just like the early Friday film title sequences. Big explosion.
So
Friday the 13th, Part 9. Jason Comes Home.
Yeah.
Okay. Pretty typical Friday movie. Okay. Nothing crazy happens in this one.
Okay.
Jason just kind of kills counselors. It's your pretty generic thing. I feel like I got to start it off a little slow.
Right.
I'm picking up after Part 8. I don't want to hit audiences with something too crazy. Friday the 13th, Part 10, Burning. Okay. Okay. So Jason got defeated at the end of the last movie, however, and a Tommy Jarvis hears about this. He goes, "What the fuck? Thought I killed that guy. Why am I reading the newspaper that killings at Crystal Lake have started up again? I better go check this out."
Right.
So he goes, he finds that Jason is there running amok, and he's like, what? I thought I killed this guy. And he thought, if I can't kill Jason, even by trapping him on the lake, how do I stop an unkillable killer with another unkillable killer? So repeating what he did in Part 6, he goes and he digs up the grave of Roy Burns. and he brings Roy Burns back to life, and we get Roy versus Jason. Friday the 13th Part 10, Burning. See what I did there? And so Jason and Roy fight, and there's a big stabbing match. And Tommy survives this encounter. But the movie, how I'm structuring it, is that Jason's killing people, and Tommy's like, I gotta do something, you know, I can't kill Jason. And I kind of picture the movie being like a stunt show. Like it's Tommy versus Jason, this whole movie. And about halfway through, after attempting to like hit him with a car, blow him up, like everything he tries, Jason just can't die. He's like, the only way I can kill Jason is with another unkillable killer.
Right.
That's my last idea. So he goes and he brings Roy Burns back to life. Because remember, Tommy was also in that movie.
Yeah, he was.
So Roy Burns and Jason fight. I kind of want to go out with a bang. Tommy's like, fuck. Like now I just got two killers that can't die killing each other.
Yeah.
So the government gets involved.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And I did say earlier that I've always thought the New Line films, you know, were their own thing, but I'm going to completely steal something from Jason Goes to Hell. The FBI show up, they're blapping the ship, they explode. Right. Both Roy Burns and Jason, movies are over, right? Okay. So I end mine at Friday the 13th, Part 10, okay. Roy Burning.
Roy Burning. Fuck, okay. It was a journey you took me on, my friend.
I'm sorry. All right, thanks for watching our Friday the 13th.
Don't subscribe. Please, for God, don't like this video. In fact, report us for some sort of copyright. I don't know what, but
we got a copyright strike on our last one.
Did we fucking actually?
Yeah, there's some music in there.
Oh, for God's sake!
We can cut this out.
Fucking goddamn. Awesome.